Namaskar and good evening, everyone. This is Gopal Krishna, and I welcome you all and the panelists to Reinventing Schools webinar series. This is the second webinar of the 6th week, and we will ideate, debate, and discuss on capacity building for educators, the need of the hour. Before moving further, I would like to show you a small video.
These are Kappa, Sid and T. They are gathering knowledge. For the more we know, the more we can achieve. But they have a problem. The rain keeps ruining their work. Despite their knowledge, they have no idea how they could protect themselves and their collection. They need new ideas. Someone has to head out in search of new experience, for development requires new knowledge. Along the way, Kappa meets other people. Together, they talk over their problems and look for solutions. Now, they can apply their new knowledge at home. Kappa, Sid and T are protected by the umbrella, but, on the whole, it's pretty impractical for everyday use. Suddenly, an idea occurs to them. The umbrella principle could be used in a different way and developed further. Now, Kappa, Sid and T are finally warm and dry. Their documents and their knowledge are safe. Development requires new knowledge. By sharing it globally, we can affect change. This is called capacity building.
I hope you all liked the video. As much as we need to challenge, equip, motivate, and empower our students, I believe that it is the need of the hour that we do the same for educators too, and keep appreciating them. If you think so, please write yes in the chat box. So this is for the attendees. If you feel that we need to challenge, equip, motivate, empower, and appreciate our educators, please write yes in the chat box. I can see a lot of attendees responding to this. Thank you so much. Once I read somewhere that if you don't come out of this lockdown with better health, fitness, more knowledge, and a new skill, then you never lacked time, but you lacked discipline. Being an adventure company, we at Rocksport, we say that adventure has made us perseverant and taught us self-discipline. And we adapted this new skill and have transformed the Reinventing School physical conferences to the virtual meetings. While many of us find the work from home situation a little challenging, one of its perks is that while doing the most difficult task, we can sip on our favorite homemade beverage. Today, I'm very excited to introduce our panelists. And I also want to share that I have joined this conversation with my energy drink, and that's a mug of Garma Garam Ilaichi Adrak Wali Chai. I believe that a cup of tea can make everything better. So without any further delay, let us ask our panelists about their favorite hot beverage. Are they a coffee person or a chai lover? Let us begin with Adhiraj Singh sir. He is the principal of Mayur School, Ajmer. Sir is a renowned educationist, has more than 27 years of experience in the field of education. Sir was the office bearer for various seminars and the planning forum at Government College, Ajmer. I believe we will get to learn a lot from you today, sir. Welcome. Please tell us what is there in your cup and what makes it special?
Thank you, Gopal, and thank you, Rocksport, for having invited me to be a panelist today. And as you rightly said, in the changed scenario, this is the best way we could have got together. Instead of meeting in person, we sit at the place we are at, and we deliberate on this remote way of talking to each other. So what, as I told you earlier, it's really sizzling out here in Ajmer with the mercury outside at 43 degrees centigrade. And therefore, nothing hot could, I could never get myself to drink anything hot. So I'm sitting with my glass of cold coffee. So it's coffee all right, but not hot, it's cold. And I hope that's going to refresh me as we go along talking and deliberating over this evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I believe that coffee is like a hug in the mug. With this, we move to our next panelist, Meera Ramanathan ma'am, Headmistress Lodha World School, Maharashtra, a passionate and dynamic educator who believes that to excel, one must grow beyond what has already been mastered. Welcome, ma'am, and please tell us, what is your energy drink?
Well, I'm quite a South Indian snob. So you guess what's in my cup. I have hot, sizzling homemade filter coffee, and that caffeine is my addiction to survive this whole COVID. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. With this, we move to our next panelist, Pia Sharma ma'am. She is the principal of Ryan International School, Sona Road, Gurugram. Her strong belief about education is that it cannot be limited to the classroom and textbooks. Welcome, Pia ma'am, and please let us know what is there in your cup.
Thank you so much. And okay, I am fond of coffee and tea both, but presently I have coffee in my mug because I have timings for every kind of beverage, So it's green tea at night, and during this time of the day when you need to be really up and about, you need all the stimulus. So that's the time you need coffee. It's coffee time for me right now. Thank you so much.
That's nice, ma'am. Thank you so much. With this, we move to our next panelist, Prerna Mushardi ma'am. She's the principal of Swaraj India Public School, Kanpur. Ma'am believes in helping children realize their dreams by building bridges of discipline. Ma'am has been dedicated to the cause of education for past 30 years. Welcome, Prerna ma'am. Please tell us, what is your energy drink?
Thank you for having me here. This is my mug full of tea. Nothing like a good hot cup of Indian chai. The desier, the better. So yeah, for me, chai has a soul connection to me. And it is like going to a spa without going to a spa. It's meditational. It helps me calm down. I feel my mother's hug every time I drink the chai. Missing those days when I was young and we would have tea together, the entire family. It brings back all those beautiful memories. And yeah, it's most calming. It helps me focus better on work because once you take care of yourself, you can start taking care of others and other work around you. So yes, tea is fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would also want to share one thing that, I always feel that teachers and tea share a special bond as first three letters of this word teachers, this tea only. And if you allow, Prerna ma'am, I've got something to share about tea. दर्द क्या होता है ये उनसे पूछिए जिनकी चाय ठंडी हो जाए.
You bet.
So I am also a chai lover and I feel so. With this, we will move to our next panelist, and our next panelist is Praneet Sohal ma'am. She's the principal of Shamrock School, Mohali. Ma'am is a seasoned and passionate educator. She's an inspiration and a motivational leader, deeply loved by students and teachers fraternity. Welcome, Praneet ma'am. Please let us know what do you prefer to have during this time?
Thank you, Mr. Gopal. In fact, with this lockdown, we've got too many cups of tea and too many cups of coffee. So I thought I'll be switching over to green tea. So this is my green tea in a Shamrock mug. Don't miss the mug, please, right? So yes, by the end of the day, we have consumed enough of the calories. And so by this time, I prefer a lighter one. But yes, even the warm weather, a hot cup of green tea can be soothing. So enjoying my evening with this and of course the company.
Great, great. Thank you, ma'am. Green tea. I should also, I would like to say that green tea is always a great idea. With this, we move to our next panelist, Sanjay Yadav, sir. He's the principal of Alcon International School, Delhi, a dynamic and versatile personality. Sir is very well versed with modern pedagogy and educational practices. Sir, please tell us what is brewing in your cup.
Good evening, Gopal. First of all, I'm so happy to be a part of this discussion with the fellow educationists and a lot more educationists attending it, because I feel my journey, I am a student and I keep learning, and I owe it to my children, number one, and then to the fellow educationists. So of course, in order to keep to the weather and the conditions in mind, my favorite beverages remain hot black coffee in winters. But right now I'm having, I'm fond of basically warm water with any flavor. That is how it goes. So right now I'm sipping a cup of green tea. That's my favorite drink. So
Lovely, sir.
this is definitely an exciting time, and I'm sure we all think alike, and we've already crossed a milestone, and now it is essential for us to shape up and to discuss that how do we deliberate, how do we take it forward. And I thank you for organizing this meet and educating everybody.
Rightly said, sir. Together we can. With this, we move to our next panelist, Shimi Sharma ma'am. She's the director of Avalon High International School. Ma'am believes in continuous reflective and reforming practices and respond to the changing world. Amazing, ma'am. We welcome you here to Reinventing Schools webinar series. Ma'am, please let us know what is there in your cup, tea or coffee.
Thank you, Mr. Gopal. I think I am, sharing the cup exactly like you, with elaichi, with adrak, my favorite tea. So I think we connect there because people believe in conversations over coffee, and I believe in chai pe charcha. And I think that, any office meeting or any, discussion cannot happen till you have someone serve you nice cup of tea. So I'm a tea lover through and through. And I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for organizing this, because I don't know what ideas on capacity building I have, but I'm here to build my capacity. Thank you.
That's nice, ma'am. This remind me of, my colleague. He always say that शाम की चाय और गुरुओं की राय लेते रहना चाहिए.
Right.
With this, we move to our next panelist, Vinita Malik ma'am. She's the principal of Delhi Public School, Bhopal, a passionate educator. Ma'am believes that the best thing about being a teacher is that you are a lifelong learner, as you continue to discover new things and grow till your last breath. Amazing, ma'am. What a lovely thought. We welcome you here.
Thank you.
And please tell us, what are you having today? What is your favorite hot beverage?
Thank you, Gopal. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the panel. And it's a privilege to be sharing the virtual panel with eminent educationists across the country. And as sir mentioned, that of all the negativity that COVID has spread around us, there are many positives also. And one major positive aspect is that it has given us the chance to collaborate and to interact, to connect with people through the virtual medium. So thank you, Rocksport, and thank you, Gopal, for giving this opportunity. And as far as the beverage in the cup is concerned, I am a tea lover and I relish coffee as well. But right now in my mug, I am enjoying my evening ginger tea, which normally I prefer throughout, irrespective of the weather conditions. Right now in Bhopal, it is sizzling. So ideally, it should have been a cooler drink. But since there is a spiritual bonding, as you mentioned a while ago, between a teacher and the tea, that connect and that bond cannot break. So I enjoy my evening cup of tea. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you all the panelists. Now I want to know from our attendees, if you are also a teacher and you have joined us with your favorite hot beverage, please write yes in the chat box. I want to see how many teachers have joined us, and if you're there with your chai, coffee, black coffee, classic tea, whatever. That's lovely. That's lovely. So the topic of today's webinar is capacity building for educators, the need of the hour. And I request all the panelists to share their thoughts and opinions in 5 minutes. We also have a buzzer to remind the panelists that 4 minutes are over. Hope that will be helpful. Before we go further, I also request the attendees, the audience, to keep writing your questions in the Q&A box, as we are going to have a Q&A session towards the end of the program. Now, I will request Adhiraj sir to kickstart the conversation. Over to you, sir. Sir, you're muted, yeah.
I've been muted by the host, it says. Okay, now it's okay, fine. Once again, on behalf of Rocksport, welcome to all the attendees, as well as this group of eminent educationists who would be talking about the topic that we are going to take up this evening. So before I invite all of them one by one to share their views, just a little ice breaking, if I could call it, about the topic under discussion today. And yes, capacity building of our educators, it's been from times immemorial. We've been talking about capacity building, making teachers empowered to deal with the challenges which the progress of time has kept on throwing up from time to time. So if you look at it today, a teacher is expected to not only be an instructor, a facilitator, a mentor, a guide, but has to wear so many other hats at the same time. And these hats, if I could just share a few, and this is just a few, by the way, not everything. A teacher is supposed to be a counselor. A teacher is supposed to be an instructor, a guide, as I've said earlier, an entertainer, a mediator, a therapist, event planner, motivator, a referee, a coach, a friend, a philosopher for the students, and the list goes on. So given these challenges, it's not an exaggeration to say that teaching is one of the most challenging vocations in the world. And in order to make it fulfilling and worthwhile, we need to empower or build the capacity of our teachers so that they can do their. Basically, what is capacity building at the end of the day? It is basically the improving of abilities.
I think there's a little disturbance with sir's internet. Before we, before starting the webinar, we were talking to each other, all the panelists, and we were discussing that teachers have been working as the frontline Corona warriors, and we've got so many teachers here with us. So if you also, people, those who are attending the webinar, if you also believe that teachers are working like Corona warriors, please write yes in the chat box. I just want to see how many people feel the same. Wow, that's lovely. That's lovely. I think Adhiraj sir is also back.
Yes, I don't think there was some issue with the server here. So I hope I could make what I was saying last clear, that when the teacher is supposed to be wearing so many hats, the capacity building, of course, becomes a very, very important aspect of the life of the teacher. And for that, if I could just start off by, a famous, the name, I wonder how many of us have heard about him, Andreas Schleicher. He's a German born statistician and researcher in the field of education, and is the chief advisor to the Secretary General at the OECD. And I quote him when he says that a generation ago, teachers could expect that what they taught would last the students a lifetime. But today, because of the immense rapid progress that we have made, both economically, socially, you name it, we have progressed. Change has been a constant, actually. What now schools and teachers have to do is prepare students for A, jobs that have not yet been created, B, technologies that have not yet been innovated, And thirdly, problems that we don't know are going to come up. So we don't know what the future holds for us. What are the different kinds of problems this generation is going to face? So these three aspects do make teaching and the job of a school very, very daunting, very challenging. So I think with that backdrop, I think we could go on and on about capacity building, but without taking any more of the time of the panelists, and then we could round up all our discussions towards the end. I would like to first of all invite Ma'am Meera Ramanathan, who is the headmistress at the Lodha World School in Thane. She skillfully manages to mentor her team of teachers and students, and she believes that a true leader is self-aware, is non-authoritative, is non-conforming, and also builds a culture of understanding. So ma'am, if you could now throw light and share your views on capacity building.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Adhiraj Singh, and thank you, Mr. Gopal Krishnan, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Rocksport, to be talking about capacity building for educators, a topic that's so pertinent in today's situation. So I'm going to be making 4 points today, okay? Let me begin with point number 1. So the topic being capacity builders for educators. One of my first questions is, how do we define the word educators in this phrase? Okay, so do we think that educators are really equal to teachers? I think very often this is something that we use interchangeably, that when we talk about capacity building, we usually refer to it only for teachers. But I would urge in today's session to actually look at capacity building as not just for teachers, but also for parents and students, because I think that this is something that we've been doing in the last 2 months. Somebody rightly said that we are in this black swan, we have the black swan effect with COVID-19. And I think one of the things that we must remember as educators, as leaders, is that when we are talking about capacity building, we are not just talking about teachers, but today we are talking about educating parents, educating students for this new online remote learning experience that we are trying to create. So that's my first point. Moving on to the second point, is that we have all heard about collective learning, collaborative learning, peer teaching. We also probably have teaching learning communities in our schools. And all of this is, we know as educators that these are instruments or very strong tools to build capacity, right? I'm 100% confident that as leaders, we've all understood the importance of collective learning better now than before. Because I say this because I'm sure that each one of us sitting here in this panel in the last 2 months has been juggling with a team of teachers, trying to identify the change agents, trying to put an online team together, trying to get experts to come in, and we haven't collaborated like ever before. Even this very session that we are speaking in is a beautiful, collaborative, collective learning, and we've all come together. So I would really like to make this point that, do you think that we've practiced collaborative learning, or if I want to call it collective learning as a tool for capacity building adequately, both in real time and in the era of remote learning? And here I would like to quote Mr. Jody Green, who's the Dean for Center of Innovation at the University of California, Santa Cruz. And he has said this really well. He says that COVID-19 has had the single most revolutionary effect on the great remote learning hack of 2020. I think he has put that really well, calling it a revolutionary effect that it's having on all of us as educators. So moving on to point number 3, talking about leadership. in capacity building. The role of leadership in capacity building is extremely critical, according to me. I'm a very hands-on leader, okay, and I'm very proud of it. Sometimes I do think that I micromanage, but I think most times I believe that experiencing things firsthand is when the leader is to guide the team. So the past 2 months, I've taken on teaching, and because I want to have the first-hand experience of what it is to go into classroom. What is the experience that my teachers are having, dealing with this whole new world of remote learning. And I'm not going to be able to gauge that unless I do it myself. So I think as leaders, it is extremely critical at this moment, more so than ever, for you to be hands-on, for you to be hopping virtual classrooms, inviting teachers to your class, getting them excited, getting yourself excited, trying new tools, having that conversation with your IT and your team, rather than just delegating it and saying, okay, come on, just figure out which tool works the best and train the teachers. So I think personally for me, that has really worked well in building capacity in this remote learning phenomenon that we are going through. Lastly, but not the least, I think the teacher, parent, student well-being. I think this is the fourth point I'm trying to make, which I think is extremely important for capacity building. We are dealing with people, right? We are all, the parent, the student, the whole community. We are mostly dealing with people. And I think one of the things that is important when we are building capacity in this whole community is for us as leaders to be empathetic, for us to be flexible. I mean, look at us right now. I mean, how many of us have had teachers who have not taken up to the technology integration easily? How many of us have had teachers who have lapped up the entire thing like they already knew it, like they were natives, like they were tech natives, right? So we have both kinds of teachers with us. We have both kinds of parents with us. We have all kinds of students with us. So, so really what I'm saying is that, as a leader, it is important for us to be able to support the weakest teacher, parent, student community and empower the strong. I think both are extremely critical. And also as a leader, focus on being compassionate and focusing on being flexible. So as educators, if we can understand that nothing is normal now, right? Everything is different. So we can't expect too much from either of us, right? So let's be empathetic, let's be a little flexible, let's go easy on our teachers, let's go easy on our students. Let's not think that this is the only thing. And it's not just this, I think even everything, all the 4 points that I'm making are very much valid, even in real time. So very quickly, I have, just to summarize the 4 points that I have made. Being a teacher at heart, it's so difficult to not have a teaching aid. And so I have made this myself. Pardon me for the roughness of it, but really these are the 4 points I'm trying to make. Point number 1 being, you need to really redefine who your educators are, okay? Let's not think that it's just the teacher when we're thinking of capacity building. The second point I'm trying to make is that how far have we practiced collaborative learning? How far have we practiced collective learning? And if there are any lessons for you from this very COVID-19 great remote learning hackdown, black swan situation, then this is the time that you start thinking about and reflecting about how well are you practicing collaborative learning? How well are you sharing best practices? How are you showing your teachers what good looks like, right? And my third point being hands-on leadership, which means that if any of us sitting here are not yet in classes, you haven't lost. Go to the classes, take up a class. This is your time to jump back into teaching and experience what teachers are going through every single day and you will automatically develop empathy. And the fourth, but last but not the least point I'm trying to make is that be flexible, be empathetic, be compassionate to the teacher, to the parent, to the student. I think that's really what we should be looking at. So these are the big 4 points. Of course, there are lots of points which I'm sure the other panelists are going to cover. But that's all I have to say about capacity building for educators, the need of the hour. So to conclude, I would just say, let us all leaders really trigger a happy note, okay, rather than a never again sentiment, and ensure that all our stakeholders have a great experience with whatever we are going through. So let's make it happy for all of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am Meera. And you wonderfully actually summarized it yourself, and you've saved me the trouble. But although your points are very, very valid, yes, as educators, it's our prime duty to be reflective. You've talked about well-being, you've talked about the hands-on approach, and you've talked about collaborative learning, which of course is key in the modern times. And I think a wonderful way to progress in your teaching learning arena. So thank you, ma'am, for your views. If there are any questions, we'll certainly be putting them up at the end. I would now like to invite ma'am Pia Sharma, who is from Ryan International School, Gurugram. She is a recipient of the Natural Human Resource Optimization Award at the 33rd World Management Congress in 2012. Ma'am, we are all eagerly waiting to hear your views.
Definitely. Thank you so much, sir. And I would like to just wish a very good evening to all educators present on the platform and the Rocksport team. Thank you so much for conducting this wonderful session. To start off with, we are amidst very unusual times today. And I think each one of us need to embrace these challenges and turn them into opportunities, which we as educators are doing very wonderfully. And it's really time today that we need to refresh and reinvent our teaching techniques. And that's why we are having this platform today. I think capacity building is how are we going to be doing that? How are we going to be moving forward with that? Yes, I guess we really need to unlearn what we know and learn new techniques, and ensure that we are going to practice them to have us give the best to our students. In today's arena where we are into a digital phase, our teachers, of course, I would like to applaud for all our teachers here. They have been, very, very smoothly transformed themselves as digital immigrants to digital natives today, and they've done a wonderful job there, right? But the main focus that remains now is that, okay, we are there, we are into our online classes, teaching there. The question arises is, are we still, able to deliver what we were delivering in our classrooms? Are we really, turning out our 21st century skills in our students? I think we all are aware that there are 3 major skill categories that our students need to have, if we want to make them ready for the 21st century. And of course, the first one is going to be our, learning skills. That includes the 4 C's that we have, that is critical thinking, collaboration, we have communication and creativity. Second is we have our literacy skills. Where we talk of IMT, that's our information, skills that we have. Now, when we talk of information literacy skills here, we are, teaching our students how to differentiate as to what is facts and what is fiction. Very important, right? And especially when we are going on this digital era here. Secondly is our media literacy skills. When we talk of media literacy skills, is how authentic is the information that we are taking from a source? How authentic is that? And the third is our technology literacy skill, making the best use of technology, which we all are doing today, whether it's cloud programming, whether, we are going with online classes, where we're using different tools, whether it's PPTs, YouTubes, videos, online, polling going on to make the classroom very interesting. So this is something that we need to be teaching our kids as well there. And of course, third, very important, we talk about our life skills, which of course Rocksport is also imparting to our students, and our moral values. Now, when I talk of life skills, we talk of flips here. When I talk of flips, it is flexibility, adaptability to change with circumstances. Very, very important skill that the students need to be taught with the today times. We've seen these are trying times, and the times can change anytime. So that is something we really need to work on. Secondly is leadership, initiative taking, productivity, as well as social skills. So this is something that are the skills that are required for the 21st century. Now, as educators today, as we talk of capacity building here, I think we really need to focus and help our e-learning programs to have these kind of objectives met so that we deliver them to our students. The idea is not teaching them the concepts and getting away. And of course, at RAN, we have 60 days up that we've been with the online classes. We finished with the phase 1 where teachers are very comfortable. They become natives, digital natives, very comfortable with how to, deliver lessons. But now we need to move a step further here. And of course, the techniques that we can use is flipped classrooms, where we have student-led classes happening now. We can also have here is design thinking, where you can have your collaborative learning coming up in a very big way. We have gamification, having online games to, make learning very fun for students. You can have polling happening. You ask a question and you can have your polling coming up, and that adds a lot of fun to the classrooms, and students also become thinking tanks there. And of course, so use the social media. They love to really read the tweets of their, artists there. And, you can have an English class where they can check the grammatical errors. So there are little techniques that we are putting up in our online classes to make them interested and to meet the 21st century skills. So I think what we really need to work now is, we know online classes are here to stay. That's the new normal that we have. Our classroom boundaries are fading. Of course, not disappearing, but they are fading. And we as educators really need to sit down, reflect, reinvent new digital pedagogies. That's the call of the hour, right? And that is how we are going to train our students also for the 21st century. So that's my take as to what it is, going to be. And that's where we need to be as educators, building ourselves, our team, and helping our students out to be ready for all times. Thank you so much. I heard the buzzer actually. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Piano, you needed to actually round off your what you were trying to say. And yes, you have touched upon the 21st century skills, which we all have been talking about lately. And that's what we need our children to actually imbibe as they go out into the 21st century. For, as I said earlier, jobs that have not yet been created, technology that has not yet been innovated, and problems we don't know. I mean, this COVID thing was something which we had never imagined, and this just came up out of the blue suddenly. And today, because our teachers are able to cope, it's because there was some capacity building. So we are really glad that, and I think all teachers do understand the need and the importance of this. It's up to the schools, the principals, the management, and all to, as far as possible, help out the teachers in terms of making them build up their capacity so that they are able to face these challenges which life keeps on throwing up. So thank you, Ma'am Pia. I would now like to invite Ma'am Prerna Musati. She is the principal of Swaraj India Public School, Kanpur. And she has been dedicated to the cause of education for the past 33 years. And as Gopal has already said, she believes in helping children realize their dreams by building bridges of discipline. Ma'am, we are awaiting your views on capacity building. Ma'am Prerna Musati, please.
Thank you for the introduction there. And thank you, Rocksport, for having me over. May you keep rocking. We need you. Schools need that other 50% of education which you provide. Well, we are here for capacity building for teachers. And I would like to say a warm hello to all the educators who are here this interesting evening of the lockdown of 4.0. And we have to say that we are all in it together. Makes it easy. Well, today's times of education with Zoom classes, synchronous, asynchronous learning, and Facebook lessons, all of them are being implemented with varying degrees of success. But what happens when schools come back in session? Are these closures merely a long snow day or a long summer break? Or will these experiences fundamentally change how we perceive education? Yes, we are in a deep crisis. Crisis, as we all are getting to learn more about, is not something to fear. It also breeds disruption and brings about innovation and often creates a future that was possible, it was probable, but it was impractical in the pre-crisis days. In other words, after this crisis, I would like to ask you, would it be easy for us to put the genie back into the bottle? No. We are all going to face a new normal, and things are never, ever going to go back to the same. So we all have to up the ante and push ourselves, in other words, build capacity as educators. This today is a great opportunity to explore online teaching platforms, which we already are doing, but we also need to rethink the purpose of learning and design and build activities that engage students in a whole new way. That is the challenge. Challenge is not only about involving technology, driving devices, processes, going digital. It is also about how much you put your heart into what you need to do to get done what you need to get done. Well, I would like to focus on 2 points, as Meera and Pia have already spoken so well about a lot of other issues. I'd like to just talk about 2 issues, one of them being the socio-emotional learning, which brings a teacher and takes her from just being an educator to becoming a coach and a mentor. Well, this is not just about another thing to add to the plate. It is the plate. Our children who are already suffering with FOMO, fear of missing out, are now also suffering with another foe. They're suffering with a FOBO, fear of being alone, fear of being on their own. And we as teachers need to cultivate in them a sense of purpose, which is going to be the driving factor in education all through their lives. Our staff will need to be trained to meet students' psychological needs post-COVID times. In the present times of remote learning, as we are doing, social isolation, and too much of screen time, we need to create a curricula and also foster connection amongst our students. Our students need to connect not only with teachers, they need to connect with the outside world using technology, and most of all, they need to connect with their own selves, which is why the purpose, the entire purpose, their being becomes very, very essential. We as teachers, of course, need to provide them the support and the encouragement. We must remember that these youngsters need to be made more socially, emotionally, and mentally astute. Moving on to my next point, it is about rethinking curriculum, design, and solutions. Here I'd like to say, gone are the days when, and soon they're going to get even more blurred, when rote learning, tables, formulae, calculations, handwriting, and the likes were important. All these are going to be a matter of the past. So we need to, rethink about what is the curricula that we want and what is it that we want to give our students and expose them to in the name of education. The future will demand solutions that allow us to move teaching from classrooms to online and both most seamlessly. We have to make sure that blended learning happens beautifully with good balance. Our teaching learning focus will have to be liquid-like. Why I say liquid is, liquid flows. Liquid fills up spaces, and liquid takes a shape of whatever you give it. So that's how I visualize the teaching learning process in the future. And our academic bulwark, which is so used to the brick and mortar and face-to-face interaction, is now trying, and we need to give it more of a push. It's trying to adjust to adapt to the new world. The new world where we've always been talking about bagless classes, or where children don't carry books to school. And that's going to happen. What a fantastic metamorphosis this is going to be, where children are going to come to school with their tablets, where we're going to have only 50% children in the class, or maybe just 33%, because social distancing is going to be in practice, and God knows for how long. Well, with children gaining digital access to knowledge, we have to now rethink. We need to build our capacity as teachers as to is knowledge that we need to give our children. Well, I'd like to wind up here as I can hear the alarm, and I wish that many, many years later, when we sit with our grandchildren, we should be able to say, those are the days when we thought it should happen, but we also thought it might not happen, and suddenly it just happened, and we're all happy now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Now can I be heard? Thank you, ma'am Prerna. I was just saying, wonderful thoughts. I think you are absolutely bang on when you say we have to rethink the purpose of learning. We've talked a lot about it, but then there are times when we need to really put it into action rather than going through reams and reams of written matter. The practical aspect of that rethinking needs to really take shape now and be implemented. And of course, your social emotional learning skills, of course, they are the need of the hour for our children, and FOBO and FOMO, of course, nice of you to have brought that up and brought it to light. Their connect with the outside world has to, of course, take shape in the proper direction, because there are a lot of diversions around. And how do we teach our children to be self-sufficient, distinguished from the right and the wrong? And for that, our teachers, of course, have this onerous task. Apart from delivering the curriculum, they also need to teach these very important life skills and then rethinking the curriculum. Thank you, ma'am Prerna. I would now like to
Adhirasa, with your permission, can we stop here for a quick poll?
Oh, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I just want to check if we and our audience are, the panelists and the audience are on the same page. For this, we will have a quick poll on our screens. And I request all the panelists and all the attendees to answer this question, this poll in 10 seconds. And I would also want to know Prerna ma'am's take on this question. Since all the information is available on a click of a button, do you think that the future role of a teacher will be of a facilitator? What do you say, Prerna ma'am? Yes, no, or what? Ma'am, can you please unmute yourself? Prerna ma'am, can you please unmute yourself? Yes, no, or cannot? What's your answer?
Bang on.
Perfect. Thank you so much, ma'am. Simi ma'am, what do you have to say?
It always was the role of a facilitator, before COVID or now. So yes.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. So let us see the results now. What our audience have to say. What is their take? Oh, that's lovely. 89% of the people are saying yes. So I think we all are on the same page. Before we move further, I would, as Prerna ma'am has spoken about the adaptability, I want to know from the audience, from the attendees, if they feel that emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, intelligence quotient, these both things are important. But what about the adaptability quotient? Is adaptability quotient important? Is it required today? And not just for the kids, but also for the educators. If you feel so, write yes in the chat box. Great. I believe that we all are on the same track. Over to you, Adhirasa.
Oh, thank you, Gopal. I think the yeses are still coming in. So yes, adaptability. And that's what I think the times are testing us right now for. Our adaptability to take on the new challenges and deliver what we are expected to deliver. Thank you, Ma'am Prerna. May I now invite Ma'am Praneeth Sohal, Principal, Shamrock School, Mohali. She believes that every individual should understand that what matters in life is action and not the result. And to take an action sincerely, one should do what is right. Very simply said, but very deep meaning to what ma'am believes. So over to Ma'am Sohal.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adhiraj Singh. And I would also like to thank Mr. Gopal and Rockfort for this sport for arranging this wonderful webinar. And a big hello to all our attendees who are here today to hear us all. It's been a wonderful platform. After many days, we are actually meeting on a different platform. The last few months, in fact, have been a total revolution for our teachers. And as Mr. Gopal just had the poll asking that adaptability, I think we have just seen adaptability happening everywhere. And it's been happening with teachers so positively. I mean, they took a minute to move into the next fold to continue education. When other spheres were just thinking what to do, the teacher decided education must continue. And there were days and days of training when those who were not what we call the tech natives made themselves so. So today we can so proudly say that the educationists are one of the most flexible, because they were not meant for teaching like corporates. They were meant to teach in classrooms with live children and feel the vibrancy of a school campus. But all that left aside, they moved to the digital world where they could hardly see children, but still they were teaching and doing the best. So firstly, I would just say a big thank you to all of us to make sure that with all the problems, we moved and allowed education to go seamlessly, COVID or not COVID-19. Well, today, since we've already had Meera and Prerna and Pia speaking about the 21st century skills, I am moving into that, but with a slightly different perspective, is that if today we want a world where our children are equipped to handle themselves, firstly, they are not suffering with social, emotional problems. We say they must have joyful experiences. The school must be a place which nourishes and flourishes happiness. How do we bring all this? How do we bring communication skills in our children? Can we just say this by advising them? No. We have to bring it into the system. We have to embed it into our classrooms. And here I'm speaking about the need. Just before this, Mr. Gopal had the poll where he was asking his teacher a facilitator. Of course she is. But we have to recognize this, that the teacher is not just teaching, she's not delivering a lecture. However small the child is and however old the child is in class 12, she is the facilitator and she has accepted this role. But this role also needs a capacity building because it's not easy. As Mr. Adhira said, she wears many hats. So these hats, every one of them needs polishing and retraining. So when we speak about the need for the teacher to be the facilitator, we also say there has to be a paradigm shift. The paradigm shift is the teacher sees herself as multifaceted. She sees herself as a mother, as a counselor. She sees herself as a resource person with lots and lots of knowledge. She sees herself as a digital competent person. But for all these things to happen, she has to change her mindset. Rather, we all have changed. We have already changed our mindset. We are there, we're doing all this. And how will the teachers now, once they move into the classrooms post-COVID-19? In fact, that's something to imagine. I sometimes tell our teachers that what you're doing right now is one challenge. The bigger challenge awaits us when the schools open their doors to children. When they come back here, are we going to handle them how differently? Are we prepared for that? So that's again the flexibility component comes in, where the teachers will have to rehab themselves for a different kind of learning. We work with the premise that children are responsible for their own learning. Now, while they're at home, we sometimes ask the parent to monitor, but there is no monitoring in a way. The child is learning himself. The teacher is teaching, but there's no physical contact. So the child is taking charge of his own learning. Ultimately, we work with this concept that if there is no struggle in the learning process, the learning does not stay with the child. And that's where the facilitator has to build a classroom with lots and lots of experiences for the child. When he goes through these experiences, learning is his, because he is responsible for his learning. And this happens when the teacher is able to create that kind of a classroom which is again a very big challenge. In fact, lecturing is the easiest because it just needs knowledge. But this needs much more because so many factors have to be brought in. Factors of coordination, collaboration, all these factors come in and then a class is built. Well, the biggest challenge for the teacher will be, of course, to prepare these classes, and she has to make sure that her learner is ready for learning, ready for receiving. The tools that the teachers must acquire, the strategies they must gather to be able to implement this kind of a classroom requires a lot of training. And this is where we want, especially the digital tools which the teachers have acquired now, the kind of training they've acquired in digital literacy is there for them to stay forever. In fact, I feel that once things return to normalcy, we should have a couple of meetings like these. And, you know, I was telling my staff on a Sunday, maybe not Sunday, they'll kill me for that. Maybe on a Saturday evening, we could just have a meeting with all the teachers over a cup of tea. And it would make, so this learning is going to stay with the teachers, that what they have learned now. But still, we have to make ourselves as competent as our children in the digital tools. And then only we can garner the kind of experiences we want to give them. Now, when we talk of this kind of an education for our children, we are actually preparing them for a career. This career that they're going to prepare for, and this also a happy life ahead. So all this comes only when our teachers have acquired the capacity to be able to deliver classes in such a manner that the child has myriad experiences and he gathers them and creates his own learning through them. Not forgetting the teacher, the educator, I would call her the facilitator. She must be given some time to assess herself. There's such a race for this and that, for learning, for assessments, for examinations, but the time has to be set aside for her to assess herself. As a therapist, she must see where's my Achilles heel? Where is that which motivates me? What is it that's driving me to do the same, you know, to go to this profession, which is not easy anymore? We all know that this has become one of the most taxing professions with so many stakeholders and demanding stakeholders. So how do we deliver? And for that, the teacher must assess herself, and the educationists sitting at the top levels must move in and train these teachers and keep the motivation levels going high, because what they're dealing with is not easy. But we are there and we love our profession. I think everybody can say that. We love our profession, that's why we are there. And, you know, whenever I moved into a class, like Meera was saying that we should move into a class, I've been doing that and I've loved it. I mean, I could see all of them. I could see the teacher. I said, this is wonderful to be able to see your children in action, and the day just goes better. So we are there because of the love of our profession, but the teachers need a lot of hand-holding to bring in the new cult of teaching. With this, I thank all of you, and thank you very much, Rocksport.
Thank you, ma'am. And very nice of you to have understood the various problems which the teachers could also face, while of course adapting to technology and to the new times. And your concept of joyful experiences being embedded in the classroom experience, in the classroom for every child is a wonderful thought. And I hope and I pray that all of us as teachers are able to do that in our own way in our classrooms. And taking charge of their own learning, which in other words, we say learning how to learn. So we must make our children adapt to the idea of taking charge of their own learning, which is actually going to help them lifelong. Today, you and I are also learners. We are learning things every day. And this is something our children need to also imbibe and understand. Thank you, ma'am. And with this, we would like to move on to Sanjay Yadav, sir. He is the principal at the Alcon International School, Mayur Vihar, and is actually actively involved in the development of subject matter with the NCERT. And he has also been associated with the CBSE in implementing, mentoring, and monitoring the various programs which CBSE comes up with from time to time. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar, Adhiraj. Good evening, Mr. Gopal. Namaskar to all the panelists and wonderful educationists who are here. It's been a journey, in fact, listening to everyone. What a wonderful way to associate with what we are experiencing in these extraordinary yet intense times. I relate it to be very intense, and I begin my day with expressing the gratitude to all the educators, my salutation to all the educators as well as the COVID warriors. Because today, if we are here sitting and discussing all these things and talking about future, that tells us about the hope. And that hope has been given to us by all the COVID warriors. So a big thumbs up to all of them, and let's hope we will continue to work on that. As it was very rightly understood and everybody has agreed to that, that today when this change happened, about 1.2 billion students in the world have been taken care by the teachers. And how could this have happened? How is it possible suddenly or overnight? The credit definitely goes to the capacity building which has been happening. I must say that over almost 2 decades now. And the credit goes to our planning in such a manner that in spite of coming across a situation which we had never thought of, which we had never imagined, and still we could meet our challenges. So with these kind of educators who have been upgrading themselves, who have been working tirelessly, I'm sure that the future of our children is in safe hands. And they are also being prepared for life. They are not just being prepared for a curriculum or a situation. So this is how I began it. Yes, at times it does make me ponder that why have we faced a situation like this? And it has a lot to do with our past actions. I won't say just about the virus alone, but the factors which have contributed, be it our over interfering with nature or creating the disturbance in the ecosystem, all those factors have contributed. So today what we are facing is the result of our past actions. And believe you me that what will be faced in future by our generations is going to depend on what we do today. Especially in this situation, how are we going to learn? Tomorrow the lockdown is lifted, tomorrow everything goes back to normal. So are we going to go back to those similar terms? Are we going to lead that life when there is no checking? Because when I say if it comes to self-discipline, it has to be inculcated when there is nobody monitoring, nobody telling you anything. And then what kind of values have you been able to retain with yourself and how have you been able to take it forward? So this is what needs to be ingrained very well, and this is how we need to connect with our children. Yes, it's a wonderful journey. As I said, that majority of the educators have been able to well connect with our children. But at the same time, when we start talking, because the whole series of talk which Rocksport is organizing, I really like the topic when we are talking about reinventing schools. So how are we reinventing schools? Of course, it has been accepted by everyone that it is going to be a blended or hybrid model of school which is going to come across. And the capacity building which has to happen today, what should be the focus of that capacity building? Is it going to be talking about cognitive skills? And is it going to be talking about the IT skills of the educators? Is it only going to be talking about how to deliver curriculum in a more interesting manner? Because this phase has already been experienced by students. So are we going to retain their interest further? Because children's mind, they move very rapidly. Are we going to able to keep pace with their mind, and are we in a position to hold their interest at the same time to protect the burnout of our educators? Because I must say that a lot has gone in. They have literally burned their midnight oil lamp. And this is why they were able to deliver. So how long is this a sustainable model? Are we really going to continue this way, and will it keep yielding the results the way we have seen it today? Where is the future? What is the future? So we need to think of that, and that is where it's a wonderful topic when we are discussing about capacity building. I remember when we talked about the significance of schooling from a child's point of view. The whole focus has to be on the child. Why does a child want to come to school? The child wants to come to connect with people. The child is not interested in what is being taught inside the classroom. Child remembers a teacher not for the academic values which have been imparted, but the connect which has been built. So that connect somehow we have been able to maintain even in these times. But we are a diverse country. Is this kind of connect possible for everyone and in a fair manner? Are we as educationists thinking about it or not? How much is our outreach, and are we able to take care of the children who have not yet been exposed to this kind of online schooling? I can still say that there is a percentage of students who need to reach to that. So the country will be able to move forward when we consider everyone and we meet the challenges, we build our capacities. Even just as when it is said in a classroom, the last child should be able to understand everything. So same way here, the last and the person who does not have the resources is also able to get all those facilities, all that education. And of course, some points which have been brought out by panelists, I would love to appreciate them, especially the SEL component, because that's very important. The online schooling is going to cause certain extent because it comes to psychological support for the child, or it is the physical development that can happen only to a limited extent in an online mode. But what about giving it the real support and taking it forward, because their energy has to be utilized, it has to be channelized, it has to be pushed forward. So are we actually building our capacities towards that? We are on a journey. We are not on a trip. Trip is something where the itinerary is known to us, but in a journey, and that to the journey where we are on exploration. So we have to be prepared for that exploration, whatever comes as a situation. Our children, more than ourselves, it is our children which have to be empowered, which have to be prepared for life ahead, because the meaning of life ahead has completely changed. So these are certain thoughts, and it will definitely require a lot of planning. It will require preparation, and it will require preventing. I'm very fond, I keep telling my teachers and my children, I said, this is the time which has given us the pause where we have to pull back. And this pullback is for a bigger launch. So how ready are we there for our launch? That is what should be the focus of our capacity building. I must also say that the panelists who have brought few things, I'm just repeating because I love these quotes which were there. Mr. Adhiraj has already talked about the CPDs which have been existing over the years, and the credit I have already given to it. Ms. Meera has spoken about taking care of the teachers, which is essential because we have to prevent them from burnout, and of course bridging the connect, because now the education has become more holistic in the sense that all the parameters, be it parent, student or teachers, they are on the same platform. And we are working with students, not for students. Ms. Prerna has wonderfully said that we need to rethink of our curriculum, because it is not the curriculum which was existing and that is going to hold the interest of the child, or it is going to take them forward. A role of technology in every field. It's not going to be just IT based learning, but it is in every field, whatever you may do. Today, if we have been able to experience this lockdown, a lot of credit goes to the role of technology, which has been able to support us in every dimension, in every sphere of our life. So this is what is there. And of course, one thing which I must say, that we all need to build stories. This is an unprecedented time in which we are living. So tomorrow when we sit and smile and talk to others, we should be able to share the wonderful stories which we have built, the kind of personal and professional development we have been able to adopt to, and we have been able to carry forward. And this is what will be the way of life. So once again, I say that the future in the hands of these wonderful educators and the support system is really bright. Our children are wonderful. Let's keep connecting with them. Let's take care of them emotionally, spiritually, physically, in all their dimensions. God bless them all.
Great. Thank you so much, Sanjay sir. It was amazing listening to your thoughts. And as I, have picked this from your talk, I would want to know from the attendees, if you feel that children learn best when they feel connected to the teachers, please write yes in the chat box. If you feel that children learn best when they feel connected to their teachers, please write yes in the chat box. I believe that making that connection is very, very important. And also I would want to stop here for a quick poll. Let us have one poll here. Okay, I think, okay, great. So now here so the next poll which we have here in front of us is responsibility of a teacher. What do you think is the main responsibility of a teacher? Finish defined curricula, inspire learning beyond textbooks, guide academic, physical, social and emotional development of students. Pia ma'am, what do you have to say?
All right, thank you for unmuting me. All right, definitely it's going to be the third point, that is, the teachers need to guide the academic, physical, as well as the social and emotional development of the students. And it's not possible. I mean, that's what the role of a teacher is, and that is what she's exactly doing right now, And that's why we can see a lot of connect between the students and teachers. Even when the students pass out, we have the alumni and they reach out. They remember the teachers more than what they remember, I would say the principal as well, It's the teachers where they connect the maximum. And I think that's what the role of a teacher is. And they've been doing over the years. Over the years, that's been done, and it would continue the same whether we go to a digital era or we are, in whatever era. The teachers are going to be the main facilitators there. Right.
Great. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So let us see the results now. What our audience have to say about this. Lovely. So 84% people say what Pia ma'am has just shared with us. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you all the audience, all the attendees. Now I would like to invite our next speaker, Simi Sharma ma'am. Ma'am, please enlighten us with your thoughts.
Yes. Thank you so much. And once again, a good evening to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Gopal. Thank you, Rocksport. And, it was lovely listening to everyone. Quite a few interesting ideas, but, my take on capacity building has been a little different. I would like to start with what Mahatma Gandhi said. He said, if you have the belief that you can do it, you will surely acquire the capacity to do it. Even if you started with not having it at the beginning. And I think that's what has actually happened during COVID, right? To all of us. Maybe it was not even the belief, but I would say, there was the need and the capacity just came all by itself. There was just no other option, no other door, and people just made this very, very automatic transition into, where we are today. When we started the online, teaching program, we were already in lockdown and, everybody was at home. Some people had laptops, some people did not have laptops. Some people have the gadgets that support, online learning. Some don't have. But today we are running, the entire K-12 program online very effectively. And things have happened because, like they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So, so very beautifully, we have all, like somebody said, become natives from the immigrants to technology. If you asked me a few months back and, if you asked me, will technology take over teachers? And I was a diehard, no, never. I think the teacher is a teacher and, you're never going to be able to replace a teacher. But today I think I'm compelled, I'm being pushed into a corner to think differently, right? And I am beginning to enjoy the whole, exciting platform that technology is bringing. It's got its challenges, but you're also viewing a whole lot of new opportunities opening up. Opportunities that we had never noticed before, that we had never felt before, never seen before. I mean, today we can actually be, cleaning up or doing our sabzi in the kitchen and come out and take a class, and we are able to, multitask and manage so many things. Like APJ Abdul Kalam said, I'd like to share that. And he said something very beautifully. He said, building capacity dissolves differences. and it irons out the inequalities. And I think here we can actually see the boundaries dissolving. So with the online platform, a teacher who had left me, or let's say moved to Delhi or moved to another city or town, is available to me for online classes now. So the barriers have been broken. I don't have to have a teacher teach who's on roll with me in the city. I can have a teacher who is now in Allahabad and who is now in Mexico, in another part of the world. So suddenly my talent pool has opened up, because now it's a question of sitting in my own space and being able to bring and contribute learning like was never possible before. So in terms of, I think, when we look at capacity building, you're basically talking about, the kind of resource and investment you make in the human resource, particularly, along with, of course, the infra and the other resources. And I think today, even professional development, if we start breaking the barriers, like we schools are connecting here on this platform, if we open up our hearts, in this lockdown, it's so much more possible for us to share professional development with different schools. So there's some bit of information and some bit of a, cherry that we are sitting with, and there's somebody else sitting with some idea, and there's somebody else sitting with one idea. And if, schools can collaborate, which has become so easy, we all can collaborate sitting in our own spaces, you can actually do a very quality professional enhancement and development for the entire community, for the children at large, not really looking at, what my teacher and my schools do. Similarly, I think, today you're not restricted to doing a class only with your faculty. So when you're looking at social emotional components, when you're looking at bringing fitness classes to your children, or you're looking at bringing, a whole lot of platform for kids, you can actually tie up with Trinity straight rather than having a Trinity trainer come to your school. And all of that is, I'm sure you all got the WhatsApp messages where Harvard was offering free online courses. So, it's becoming so much more easier to connect your student community to the world at large outside, to connect your teacher community within the school, to collaborate and to network and to collaborate with people outside of the school. So, a lot of good, possibilities we can see in the future if we really work on. I would just like to leave everyone with one keyword: partnerships. Partnerships with parents, because you have a doctor parent who says, yeah, I'm at home and I can take a lecture for you. Or you have a, banker, and you have all kinds of people sitting out there, and everybody can pitch in and make your lessons and the experiences for children far, far more enriching. So I think we need to, when we say capacity building, what we really need to look at is partnerships. Partnerships with parents, partnerships with other schools, partnerships with other community agencies, across barriers, so we can actually build the learning experiences for the children and for our teachers to a much, much more powerful, state. That's all that I would like to say.
Great. Thank you, Simi ma'am. Very well said. The way our teachers have adopted the technology is just amazing. But there is a long way to go. Let's be the lifelong learners and keep inspiring the young minds. Capacity building and partnering with each other is the need of the hour, what I believe. With this, I would like to invite our next panelist, Vinita Malik ma'am. Ma'am, please. We are eagerly waiting to hear you.
Thank you, Gopal. And hearty good evening to one and all present as panelists on this platform, and all the educators and facilitators who are attending this session. And I begin by applauding the efforts put in by each and every member of the teaching fraternity across the globe, that in this situation, which came all of a sudden and swept each one of us, we all remained grounded. And though initially it appeared as if it's something very, the future seems to be very dark and bleak, and how to come out of it, we don't even know today also. But as it is always said, every dark cloud has a silver lining. And that is what the teaching community has done. There are frontline warriors. I always have been telling the teachers that don't undermine your potential. They are braving and facing it. They are fighting for all of us, taking care of us, all the frontline warriors. But you are also as good as those people who are actually facing the COVID situation. You are facing it in a lockdown situation, maybe from your home front, but you also have equally contributed, because when everything all of a sudden was put under lockdown, none of us were prepared. We had never expected that in our wildest of dreams, we wouldn't have dreamt that ever we will encounter a situation where, especially the teaching fraternity, that the schools will be bereft of children. I always say any infrastructure, no matter how beautifully it has been crafted, it comes to life only when the life and soul of that infrastructure, the children and the teachers, are part of it. And suddenly one fine day you realize that you no longer can reach there for, you never know for how many days or maybe months, and this is what exactly happened. But the steps taken by the teaching community, the teachers, they stepped forward, they plunged into action, and maybe the paradigm shift that is required, that you keep on learning, you keep on unlearning, and again you keep on relearning. They adapted it so well. And as one of the panelists already said, that adapting to the scenario that we were surrounded by was the need of the hour, and we have all lived up to it. And technology, definitely we were, many of us, most of the teachers, if not all, but some of them required a lot of hand holding. And as ma'am said, that collaboration, connecting with each other, stepping forward to help each other, that is what ruled and helped each one of us running the show. And as we always say, the show has to go on. And that is what the teaching community has done. We have lived up to that. We have not only played the role of a mentor, a guide, but we have facilitated learning in this pandemic, in this dark scenario which had suddenly engulfed each one of us. Imagine a situation, a 3-year-old child who was all eagerly waiting, lot of excitement to step into the boundaries of the school and explore the unexplored domain. And suddenly we all discover that this is not going to happen as it was planned. All of us had planned so many interesting things, but suddenly we were under lockdown. But despite that fact, a teacher connecting to that 3-year-old, 4-year-old child and making the child understand, pouring the heart out, developing that emotional bond, because small children require a lot of cuddling, and they need to have a different kind of an approach, a different kind of handling by the teacher. And I must appreciate all the teaching fraternity members that you have done it marvelously, and you deserve a big round of applause from all of us across. And putting across was possible because we all have understood that change is the only constant and it happens very swiftly. Adapting to that change is something that has helped us live up to it, meet the challenge, and we have been able to keep ourselves grounded. And that is what still awaits us. We know that even when we get the opportunity for which we are all waiting to step back into our schools, our home away from home, we have a bigger challenge awaiting us. How to adapt, how to be comfortable in that new normal which is awaiting each one of us, and especially maintaining that emotional connect with the child, having that empathy for the child, for the parents, because it is not going to be easy. The children have got accustomed to stay in the comfort zone of their homes. They are being looked after by the parents, and they are being equally looked after by the teachers. Now stepping out of that comfort zone and coming back to the school, which they definitely are desperately waiting for. But in this new normal, taking care of the social distancing norms, how it is a bigger challenge for us to make them understand and tune them and train them with a lot of emotional bonding, that this is the need of the hour and we will have to adapt to it. And here again, the role of a teacher comes into play. She has to be that facilitator who's going to facilitate this transition for a child, that whatever used to be normal is no longer going to be as it used to be. It has to be a new normal. You will have to train them to keep themselves contained but enjoy. So I'll sum up with this, that the teacher needs to be more than a sage on the stage. She or he has to be a sage on the field with the child, with the parent, and with the entire community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm so sorry. We were talking of, the new normal where technology is heavily dependent on for somehow my technology gave way suddenly and my laptop crashed and I was out for the last week. Because in fact, I could not thank Yadav sir, and I also could not thank Simi Sharma ma'am. But I've just come back in time after, I guess, plan B and plan C operations to come back into the district, but we have come back. So thank you, ma'am, for your views. And Gopal, if it's okay, can you have anything else to say? Questions that you have shared with me, and I've also been managed to box. If you could ask our panel.
So you want me to ask the questions?
No, I'll do that. I just
Perfect.
thought, since I'm feeling slightly left out in the sense that, there was a bug in this thing, and I was trying again and again to get through, but it could just not get through. I had gotten from my mail. But anyway, technology does have a website. And so if I could just to sum up what all of us have this evening, with my apologies to Ma'am Simi Sharma and Ma'am Vanita, although I almost heard whatever Yadav sir had to say completely, but I did miss out on that. So moving on, we could just sum up that capacity building for teachers, of course, is the need of the hour. It has always been the need, but more so in today's times when we are seeing so much of change and so quick change, if I could call it that. I was just reading somewhere that there are these 5 categories of teaching needs. 5 categories of teaching needs, which teachers would require. One is the cognitive, where teachers must be cognitively and emotionally challenged, continually planning for and engaging in and reflecting on learning experiences, which one of our panelists has also emphasized. The physical need, which is teachers must feel safe, secure. They must be feel fit, resilient, and strong. The emotional need of teachers is that teachers must be stress-free in a trustful, non-evaluative environment. Then, talking of the social need of teachers, teachers must be in collaboration, which is again something a 21st century skill. Interdependent, reciprocal relationships are a must for them. The spiritual need of teachers, of course, is often overlooked, which I would like to emphasize on. And we were talking of nature. Yadav sir was actually emphasizing the need for not, how we would land ourselves into bigger trouble if we do not heed the call of nature. So the spiritual part, where teachers must transcend the trivial in the curriculum and go on, that is transcend from that to be dedicated and committed to achieving the larger value of what they do as purposefully leading to a better, more beautiful and harmonious world. So these are various needs of the teacher, and I think as people who are a part of that fraternity, we cannot overlook these very basic needs of the teachers, which need to be there for any effective capacity building. Taking up from the questions, and I was also quickly jotting down along with what Gopal had sent me a few questions. One was, which we are talking of the needs of the teacher. One teacher.
Adhiraj sir, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but as we are running short of time, I'll request all the panelists to answer the question in 60 seconds.
Certainly. So
I understand that it's going to be a little difficult, but if we can please do so.
Certainly. So 60 seconds, sir and ma'ams, for any answer. And should I leave it to anyone who would like to pick up that question, or should I address it to a particular panelist?
Sir, if you like question to a particular person, that's going to be better.
Fine. So one teacher has raised, I'm sorry, I couldn't get the name, but I've got the questions. She has talked about the mental health of teachers. It's good that we keep on facing challenges, we keep on wearing so many hats, but what about our own mental health? So if Ma'am Prerna would like to take this up.
So we're talking about taking care of the mental health of teachers. So
Yes.
as I said earlier, for the students, what is a driving factor is purpose. So, I mean, as long as the purpose is there, the teachers have the spirit, because, you know, it's like we are warriors too, we are angels. If not us, then who else? So when you know you're streamlined, you have that goal in mind, I think there is nothing but that charge of the light brigade that just carries you through. And that achievement, that feeling of freedom, of using capability, which is, I think we're having a lot of freedom nowadays to use this, that, and the other, act in front of the camera, do poems interestingly, laugh with the children. So there is so much of freedom where our teachers are literally performing. There is an inbuilt happiness factor that is getting generated. So when you achieve, you know, you sleep at night on that pillow feeling totally satisfied because you made a difference. So I think that takes care. And of course, as management, as administrators, as leaders, we need to, you know, overlook the mistakes that they make, because a lot of them are not very good with technology. We need to be soft on them. We need to do a one-on-one, you know, we need to give them help one-on-one. The IT department needs to be hands-on and just be accepting, and we're all in it together.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. Of course, I know we as teachers, as a breed, we are very resilient. And we have realized that from time to time. And the present times are proving that. But yes, that resilience, as you said rightly, needs to be taken care of. We cannot take teachers for granted. Certainly their mental, emotional health needs to be looked after too. There's another very interesting question, and the teacher has asked, what is the main difference between capacity building and training? Is capacity building only a matter of training? And I'd like to put up this question to Yadav, sir. If you'd like to take it up, sir.
So when we are talking about, as I was giving you an example of a journey and a trip. So
yes.
A trip is something which could require, you can correlate it. It's an anomaly I'm giving, that this is what you can call it, a training, which is specified on a particular aspect of it. But the journey is endless and it has to meet exploration. So capacity building is something which you will prepare you for a situation which you have not even come across, and that is what exactly the teachers have done. I've given the credit to capacity building over last 2 decades, which is giving us the results today. So this is the fundamental difference, and capacity building is a holistic term.
Rightly said, sir. So yes, so I think that clarifies the doubt about the difference. Actually, you know, we can't use them both synonymously, but at the same time, yes, there are a lot of common elements to that, and the journey and the trip, I think that metaphor will, I think, amply explain it. Thank you, sir. I would now be putting up questions to 2 of our panelists, since we have run out of time, and therefore, if you know, both of the panelists could just answer that question and add on to what the previous one has said. This question of, do you think the current teacher training modules meet the need of the evolving role of a teacher in present times? And if Ma'am Meera, along with Ma'am Pia, could answer this question.
I think it's a very generic question. So I'm not sure what training modules they're referring to.
I think they're talking about the present teacher training, you know, what we go through.
The colleges, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I would say that definitely in Mumbai, it's pathetic. And it is certainly not meeting the needs of a teacher who is in real time now, and now also in virtual classrooms. But yes, there are a lot of other training modules available, and you have to be very clear as to what is the goal of your school, and what's the culture that they want to build for learning, and it has to be tied up. So training modules are available, but like Ms. Prerna said, there has to be a purpose. And if the school can actually identify the needs of the teachers and fill those gaps, training modules will definitely help you in building capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And now moving on to Ma'am Pia.
Here I would like to just add on is when you talk of training modules, I think, okay, what ma'am has just added is like B.Ed schools are not doing their jobs well. Okay, but they're giving you a base as it, as to what your knowledge needs to be. Now, it depends on an individual, how you want to deliver your class. And of course, the management rules are there, but the creativity of the teacher comes in here, right? So I think as a teacher, the training modules are there to help you, to give you a base, but you need to build on your creativity, look out for different training programs yourselves, which are plenty of them are available on internet. Train yourselves, get into a lot of capacity building programs that CBSE is conducting. And I think we are there to deliver. I mean, I personally feel, like our teachers are very progressive, right? And they are doing that. They know what the needs of the students are, what is the need of the hour, and they are actually filling themselves up and really coming out beautifully with these, fulfilling the needs of the students today. So I would just say is that do not bank on anyone, get on. You need to be your own captain. Look out what you want to give your students, what is the need of the hour, and just take the plunge and be creative and get on. I mean, nobody is going to be telling you all the time how to go about it. You need to be creative in your classrooms. Your management does guide you. They have the guidelines. We have very much our guidelines there, what we are looking for it. And yes, the teacher adds on. And of course, as a principal, we need to be there to, of course, train them and tell them how to go about fulfilling the needs of our students and what the society is looking for. So I think that would answer the question there for the teachers. Be a lookout. Be your own masters. Be your own teachers. Don't, let's not play the blame game that, we need to look out for good training gaps there.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for, elaborating on that. And there's one more question which I would be now putting up to Ma'am Praneeth Sohal and Ma'am Simi Sharma. And this question has again come up from the question and answer box, and it says, what should teachers do to prepare for the role of being a facilitator of learning rather than just teaching?
Whoever has put this question, actually, you're already facilitators. You're not teachers anymore. Any progressive school that you're a part of, the fact that you're looking at this option tells already that you are prepared to be a facilitator. What it actually means is that you need to just have lots more options for a class. It's as simple as that. Leave the lecture method, do anything else that you think will make your children experience the learning. They will partake, they will go through some activities, and they will form their own impressions and derive information. If it's a process-oriented learning, you are a facilitator. The process is what you have to create rather than deliver from a book. And I think the sooner we get rid of books and the sooner we get rid of, a fixed curriculum, we would have become more of facilitators, because then we would be teaching according to a system that we have created. So we're already there, I think,
Yes, ma'am. In a way, I got you. Yes, exactly. So can we have some...
Yeah, I would like to add, so, as a facilitator, I think, what I have seen in my practice is that mostly as teachers, we are very much in love with the right answer. And that's one love that we have to give up to turn into a facilitator, not be in a hurry to get to the answer and not to have one right answer. If you can actually open up the doors and allow children to explore, so rather than giving them the answer or being bothered about the answer, if you can show the direction and continue to give probing questions, just say, okay, do you think it's really right? I mean, let them make their own judgment about right or wrong. So when you learn to step aside, which is a very, very difficult learning, it's not going to come overnight. It takes years of practice to really turn into a facilitator, because we are by default setting teachers who like to give the right answer, tell the right stuff, and wrap it up. So it's a journey. When we say that the process is more important than the product, but we are product bound. We are all outcome bound. We are all in love with the assessment sheets and stuff like that. Unless we abandon that and begin to enjoy the process itself, we cannot turn into a facilitator. So it's a journey. I think she would need a mentor to see her through. It's not something that happens on its own.
Very well pointed out, ma'am. And in fact, as teachers, throughout our careers, there have been times when we have felt the need of a mentor. And the mentoring as our teachers is, again, a great thing to do. And schools which do really have produced successful teachers. So very well pointed out, ma'am, for that. And the last question is for ma'am Vanitha Malik. And this had also come up in the question answer box, and I just jotted it down. One is about parental expectations in today's times of online teaching, that they are there all around with the child, and often they lack netiquette. So therefore, how do we educate the parents to follow netiquette when you are teaching online? And added to this is another question which I thought was important, and I think it comes from an educator who's doing the pre-primary, that little kids in the kindergarten who attend these online sessions, how are we supposed to judge or assess whatever learning or what learning has taken place, or has learning not taken place at all? So 60 seconds for that, ma'am Vanitha, if you could wrap it up with that.
Thank you, Mr. Adhiraj. Regarding the netiquettes for the parents, it is basically for the parents who have to understand, because they have been part for the last 1 month, more than a month now, they have been part of this collaborative teaching learning process. Because on the home front, it was the parent who was supposed to be supporting the effort and encouraging the effort of the teacher. So we as educators or facilitators, we are facilitating the teaching learning process, the transmission of the information, and we are co-constructors of knowledge with the children. So it has to be a collaborative bond with the parent also, and they themselves will have to introspect and appreciate the effort being put in by the teacher. So they will have to follow the guidelines, and as schools, we can only request them. We can give them a kind of maybe a precursor to what is our expectation from them, and together when we join hands with each other, only then the outcome is going to be fruitful. Regarding assessing whether the children of pre-primary, they have understood. When I was speaking, that time also I mentioned that it was a bigger challenge for a teacher to deal with those children and develop that connect when the child or the children have never met the teacher even once in the new session. And now it will be a bigger challenge when they come back to the school, how these small children are going to relate that it is the same person who was the one who was facilitating learning for me through another medium, and now I see face to face. And assessing these children, it is I will not want to structure them in a structured assessment. As ma'am just mentioned a while ago, the process is important. So whether we want to focus on the process or we want to still continue with the product, the outcome can be assessed later. Right now, it is the objective, the purpose, whether we have been able to attain that objective of ours or not. I would like to end with this.
Thank you, ma'am. Very rightly said. And of course, there have been lots of more interesting questions come up. I wish I could have put them up, but the constraints of time force us to, close the session. There was a very interesting question about screen time, that we've been telling our children, don't reduce your screen time, don't watch screen most of the times, and they're always busy with their mobiles and laptops and television, everything. That's how they're spending their time, especially during the lockdown. And now they have been stuck to the screens. Education, entertainment, everything is happening through the screen. So that was another one. But anyway, I think Rocksport would take them up in the upcoming series. These webinars have been really great and a great initiative of Rocksport. So with that, I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists today. And at the same time, I would also thank Rocksport for organizing this. And it's been a great, enriching and learning experience for all of us. I'm very sure of that. So thank you, Rocksport. And I'd just like to hand over now to Rocksport for the conclusion of today's session. We have already overshot the time, I think, by a good 45 minutes. Thank you, everyone, and namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, all the panelists. I don't have anything to say. You know, you all have covered it so well. What I have to share is that I'm taking a lot of learnings back from here. I've noted down everything in my diary. I was, you know, you must have observed that I was writing throughout the webinar. I really loved the session. Now, I'm sharing a link in the chat box, and I request all the panelists and attendees to fill that and give us their valuable feedback about the webinar. So the link is there in the chat box. I would also like to thank all our panelists for taking out time and making this an enriching discussion. It was an honor to have you all here with us. Thank you, Adhiraj sir. Thank you, Meera ma'am. Thank you, Pia ma'am. Thank you, Prerna ma'am. Thank you, Praneet ma'am. Thank you, Sanjay sir. Thank you, Simi ma'am. Thank you, Vinita ma'am, for joining us.
Thank
I
you
would
so
also
much.
like
Thank
to
you.
Thank you
I
so
would
much.
also like to thank all the lovely audience out there for joining us. Please
Thank
follow
you.
us on Facebook page to know more about the details of upcoming webinars. The next webinar is scheduled on Wednesday, 29th May, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Don't forget to register yourself.
That's a Friday, Gopal, not Wednesdays today.
Sorry, sir. Friday. Sorry, Friday.
Friday. Yes,
Thank you.
looking
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rocksport. And thank you, everyone, for having attended this. A big thank you from all of us.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you once
Thank
again.
you so much. Nice meeting all of you. Thank you.
Thank